And I think we should get to some calls now. What do you think, Ben?
Yeah, I'm ready. We got one in the queue that looks very interesting to me.
Yes, I see that. Let's go ahead and start talking to them. We got Steven calling in from Europe. Steven, you're live on Talk Heathen. What's up?
It's because I'm. Hello, hello.
Hello, Steven. How's it going?
Good, nice. It's a nice evening here in Europe.
Great. Well, I see that you told the call screener you think religion can be beneficial to society, and the civil rights movement was motivated by religion. Is that right?
Well, kinda, yeah. I mean, I do know that a lot of the leaders were also like atheists, inspired by like leftist ideals, but a lot of the leaders were also like pastors. You know, a thing that is kind of forgotten today, but was very, how do you say, like popular then, is the social gospel movement. Like the Protestant idea that like the point of the gospel is to improve society, to help the poor, fight for justice, etc., etc.
Yes. I mean, I'll give you this, Stephen, right? There are definitely people who have worked for civil rights causes that are inspired by their religious teachings or inspired by their interpretation of religious texts and in their community, right? I'll give that to you. There's no arguing with that. I mean, hands down, you can point to so many different examples of that happening. I think the problem is, though, if we're talking about in Christianity in particular, there are also people who have fought directly against what civil rights advocates have fought for a long time. For example, I mean, if we're talking about the United States, one of the biggest proponents of people who were supporting the justification of owning other human beings was citing the Bible and citing specific references to the text in the Bible to justify the ownership of other people. So like the problem is that it goes both ways with that source text. I think that's why we still talk about and still criticize a lot of religious teachings, even if they inspire a lot of good in the world, they have an equal capacity to inspire bad. In other words, there's something else that happens here. It's not really the text that can necessarily do it. I do, at least in my opinion, I do think it's the goodness of people, but also people can logically deduce what's best for humans without inferring religious texts at all into the equation. But that's kind of why we share those criticisms. But Ben, what do you think about this?
Yeah, that's kind of the route that I was going down as well. And my question would be, do you think it is the religious aspect specifically that is causing them to do these good things?
Well, I would say not. It's not the only element, but I think it has a good how to phrase this. Like it has a good thing to add to it, like especially with regards to motivation and like.
What are we adding to if we're talking about somebody who's a human who cares about other humans, who is feeding homeless people and doing these what we would deem to be good things? If there's multiple factors here, how can we determine that religion is changing any of the outcome?
No, what I would say it can, for example, like I would even grant that if you were to do a statistical analysis, like being an atheist, like more atheists are like beneficial to society than religious people. Like there's a lot of conservative religious people who are detrimental to society, but like. I would have to balance that out against the additional motivation that being religious gives you. For example, if you are a benefit to society.
So for example, why do we need to balance that? Like, here's my question, and I have a problem with when people say that they need to balance out these points of view. Because do we? Just because there's two or more opposing points of view does not mean that they should be given equal weight as variables, right?
In the sense of what do you mean? In sense of like being true? Because
well, yeah. Well, so if you have a multifactorial conclusion, like so, let's say that I I want to run a marathon, and one of the variables that I put in is that I train every week for this marathon. Another variable is that I get a coach to help me train for this marathon, and then another variable is that I decided to eat one specific thing every single day. Like I ate a slice of toast every single day to prepare for this marathon. Like you could argue maybe that toast had some contribution to me running the marathon, but it plays a smaller role than the training and the coaching, right? So just because there are multiple factors does not mean that they should be given equal weight for my success. Like if someone asked me, if I did this marathon and someone asked me, what caused your success to complete this marathon? I can't say, well, yeah, I ate this slice of toast every day, and that's really what made a difference for me. No, that would be dishonest, right? Like it's a part of the equation, but it's a small component compared to, I should say, yeah, I put in this work and this training and I got this coach. And then, yeah, there's also maybe a little bit of me eating toast. But do you see how there's like, you can't take all of these variables as equal contributors?
No, sure, and I wouldn't do that, but I would think that your analogy doesn't really like do justice to the weight that different elements have. So like both
So
the
you have to
atheistic
so
and
you have to justify if you're going to assign a certain weight to religion, you have to give evidence then that this is a significant component, right?
well, like as a basis, I would first say that as a basis for like socially beneficial moral views, it's kind of equal in a theoretical sense because like both Martin Luther King, who was a pastor, and his associates who
Well,
were
so a theoretical sense doesn't matter, right?
like
Because theory isn't reality. You can theorize almost anything. But how would you demonstrate that they are equal contributors besides just thinking about
as
it?
a basis for like having socially beneficial views, it seems to me that like both socially beneficial atheists and socially beneficial Christians have like a solid how do you call it, like a moral framework to be socially beneficial. Like,
But how would you
I don't see
demonstrate?
that.
I'll let Dan chime in because I've been
Well, here's the thing, right?
monologuing a bit.
I heard you say earlier that you would even be willing to bet that like atheists would contribute more to social good than religious people, right? Or you said something along those lines. Am I wrong in that?
No, that like for example, of the totality of atheists, a larger percent is likely to be progressive than the percent of the total of religious people. Yes.
Okay, so with that claim in mind, like if you genuinely believe that to be true, why would religion even play a factor, right? like if we're even saying that the totality of atheists, yeah, would be greater to progressive causes. So why even give religion anything then? Why wouldn't we not say,
Well,
well, more atheists would actually bring more benefit to society?
sure, but I would say like there's one factor that is a practical one and one factor that is the motivation part that I mentioned that I didn't get to elaborate. So the practical one would be that it's unlikely that religion is going to go away at least soon, and we should like encourage people at least to be liberal religious people and moderate religious people and not just atheists. So it's much more likely to get more benefit for society. Like,
So I have a problem with that because again, you keep asserting the claim that it's going to be beneficial for society and that people should do it. You have yet to bring evidence that it is, and that religion is the cause of this benefit to society.
But now I didn't. In what I just said, I said that it's beneficial to have liberal religious people, not conservative religious people.
So here's my pushback on that. So people who are religious, who are doing good things, I don't want to get rid of them because they're doing good things. But I also am not convinced that it is the religion that's making them do those good things. Is it possible that you could be a good person and happen to have a belief that isn't actually impacting your actions?
Of course, but I'm just saying from 2 points of view. One is the practical side, that it's much more practical to exhort religious people to become liberal religious people than it is to exhort them to become atheists. I think it would have a much higher success rate
I hear what
in
you're
improving society.
Stephen, I hear what you're saying. What you're saying is, from a practical political point of view, we as atheists should be more supportive of liberal religious, upbringings or organizations, because their progressive goals tend to match more in ours, and ultimately that's what we want. We want people to have more progressive. I mean, a lot of atheists, obviously not every atheist has the same political affiliation, but those of us who do,
society, yeah.
I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. Here's why I still talk about liberal Christians in the same way I do about conservative Christians, right? Because if the basis of your reasoning is still faulty, if it's still based on something illogical, or if it's based on something that is suspect to examination, then chances are your other beliefs are too. And they can also be changed based on reasoning that may or may not be sound, right? So I agree with you in the sense that, look, I'm going to go to the polls with liberal Christians and hope they vote the same way I do. Yeah, sure. Okay. I'm still going to say you should be an atheist, right? Because I don't think you should be convinced to be a good person because of your religion. I think that's faulty, and I think that leads to some problematic conclusions. I've talked to many liberal Christians even on this program, some of which have guest co-hosted with me, who we share same political views, but we also share some differences. And you know where those differences come from? Their interpretation of religious texts, right? And so that's always going to be a hindrance to true progress in my eyes, right? So I'm still going to advocate that people should not believe in things that aren't true, regardless of whether it's politically convenient for me or not, because I just think that's the right thing to do. I think that's how we should advocate for truth. Yes, am I going to, champion progressive causes that other liberal Christians will also champion? Sure, but at the end of the day, I'm still going to wish they're atheists. I'm still not. I'm not going to leave that alone and just say, well, they're doing some good stuff, because chances are, again, they probably do have beliefs that don't match up with reality, that still lend credence to ideas that we shouldn't lend credence to. Does that make sense, Stephen?
Well, personally, I don't think that argument works, because, of course, you can say their religiousness makes them open for irrational views, but that kind of leaves unsaid the opposite part of the coin, that atheists themselves are not immune to having irrational views, including ones.
You're absolutely right.
Mental.
You're 100% right. Being an atheist doesn't mean that you don't have irrational views. You're 100% right on that. But if you're going to, and I don't even think it's religiosity in that sense. I think it more has to do with the association of people who are in religious communities, and the way that they interpret ideas, and the way that they interpret claims about truth, right? So if you're in that kind of community, you're going to probably view things in similar ways or use similar methodologies, all of which could be suspect if it's based on premises, for example, that a man rose from the dead 2,000 years ago. And yeah, obviously atheists are guilty of all kinds of fallacies and stuff, but we can at least mark that one off our list. That we can say for certain that that's probably not true.
Sure. Though I would just say that I would much more agree to that argument if it's about conservative Christians, because they actually do believe a lot of stuff that liberal Christians don't, about Earth being 6,000 years old and many such things.
Sure. But again, I point to this
methodological approach that liberal Christians usually don't.
But the methodological approach is kind of the same, though, in some ways, right? Because one, they're saying, well, this is what Jesus taught me, or this is what the Bible taught me, and this is what I believe to be true. That's what the conservatives say. And you know what the liberals say? This is what Jesus taught, and this is what the Bible taught, and this is what I believe to be true. Right? They're using the same, it's the conclusions are different, but the method is still the same. They're still interpreting these religious texts to inform their worldview.
The conclusions are wide. But I think that the conclusions are wildly different in the relevant sense for this question.
They are wildly different, because the methodology is not sound. The methodology is not sound. It leads to different conclusions.
I mean,
and that's the problem, right? That's why we say you shouldn't do that. That's why we talk about it. But hey, Stephen, this is all the time we got for this call. Okay. But I do appreciate you pointing out some important things here. One is that, yes, atheists are just as likely to fall into all kinds of cognitive hazards as any religious person. Don't think that we're the smartest people in the room. I've met a lot of atheists in this community, and since I've been doing this for the past couple of years, and let me tell you, they're not all the big brain rational thinkers that we sometimes pretend ourselves to be. But at the same time, we also check ourselves a lot more. We check ourselves before we wreck ourselves. In religious communities, I could just say whatever I thought about something, and the difference in how other people will say is, well, that's not how I interpret the Bible, or that's not how I interpret Jesus's teaching, and that leads nowhere. That's just a big circle. It's just one people thinking this says this, and other people saying this says this, right? Anyway, Ben, I was talking for a long time there. What do you think about that call?
No, I mean, like, my points from the beginning were kind of what I'm sticking to, and the
Yeah.
whole time he's making this assumption that religion is a primary component for those actions being done, and never was able to bring up evidence to show that that is the case. So I
Yeah.
think I would still need more to even say that it is a contributing factor to their actions in that way, in that beneficial way.
That's true. And if we are able to also contribute to good to society, and if we can cite our reasons not being religious in nature, some would say they are religious in nature. We would obviously disagree. Then you don't have to have religion to do good. That's it.